Jeff, I'm getting hungry. Can we stop for lunch soon?
Yeah, sure we can. And we're in the perfect town for a midday meal. Welcome to Sandwich, New Hampshire, Ray.
I get it. Sandwich.
Yep.
There's also a Sandwich, Massachusetts, out on the Cape.
Yep, no, that's true. Sorry for the horrible joke. But today our destination is the town of Sandwich in central New Hampshire. Make a right up here onto Little Pond Road.
All right, got it.
And what we're looking for is just ahead there on the left.
Oh, wow. Okay, I see a huge stone wall running along the side of the road.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big stone pillar at the beginning with a white statue on top.
Yep, well, so pull over here because this is what we're here to see. We're in Sandwich, New Hampshire to visit the Great Wall of Sandwich, a roadside oddity built out of spite. Hi, I'm Jeff Belanger, and welcome to episode 235 of the New England Legends podcast. If you give us about 10 minutes, we'll give you something strange to talk about today.
And I'm Ray Auger. Thank you for joining us on our mission to chronicle every legend in New England, one story at a time. Most of our story leads come from you, like this one. Thanks to Jack Sengstaken for tipping us off. If you've got a weird local story you think we should check out, please do get in touch with us through our website, through social media, or in our super secret Facebook group.
Be sure to tune in after the credits at the end of this episode for a new segment we've recently added to the podcast we call the Post-Legend Riff. Now, before we get to this great wall of spite in Sandwich, we want to take just a minute to thank our Patreon patrons.
Our Patreon patrons are a special group of people who help keep our podcast going and growing. They help us with hosting costs, production and marketing costs, and everything else it takes to keep us bringing you a new episode podcast for 235 weeks in a row.
Wow.
For just $3 per month, they get early access to new episodes, plus bonus episodes and content that no one else gets to hear.
We appreciate your support. You know that great content isn't free, and most people aren't going to sign up. So if you can help the cause, please head over to patreon.com/New England Legends. You can also find links on our website.
All right, Jeff. So this wall in Sandwich looks rather stately.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Now, there's thousands of miles of stone walls in New England.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's one in my backyard. The old colonial-era walls are everywhere. Colonists settled this land, found endless supplies of rocks, and they had to move them if they're going to build farms and homes and things like that. So these old stone walls often marked property lines.
Right, but those walls are maybe knee-high and sit in a pile.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people took the time to make them neat and square, but mostly they're just kind of thrown together. This wall in Sandwich looks nothing like those.
No, it doesn't.
This great wall is 5 or 6 feet tall, depending on where you're standing. It's 10 feet wide and clearly square and well built. And it runs about 1,000 feet down Little Pond Road before turning northwest into the woods. The whole wall sits on private property, but there's plenty you can see from here on the street.
Plus, there's this large stone pillar at the beginning with a white statue on top.
The statue is a robed figure leaning forward with an outstretched arm.
That statue is of Niobe. Niobe is from the Greek mythology. She's the daughter of Tantalus and the wife of Amphion, who's the son of Zeus.
And you said earlier that all of this was built out of spite?
Yeah, that's what they say.
Wow.
Now, to find out how this wall got here and who built it, we're going to head back to 1824 and meet Isaac Adams.
It's the summer of 1824, and a 22-year-old local boy named Isaac Adams isn't doing well.
Why is that?
Well, to answer that, we should offer a little more background on him. Isaac was born in Rochester, New Hampshire. His father died when Isaac was young, leaving his widow behind with 5 children to care for. So by age 9, Isaac was sent to live with his uncle. The young boy had no formal schooling, but loved to learn, and he loved books and literature. When he turned 12, Isaac spent the next 3 years working at a cotton mill in Dover, New Hampshire, before taking an apprenticeship with a cabinet maker, which is what eventually landed him in the town of Sandwich here in the summer of 1824.
Isaac is ambitious, focused. He's got big dreams. Sandwich isn't big enough for Isaac and his dreams, and that rubs a few people the wrong way.
If he can just get to Boston, maybe he can make those big city dreams and plans happen and start a new life for himself. The only problem is Isaac is broke.
So with no savings to his name, Isaac reaches out to his wealthy boss to ask for a loan. That does not go well. In a fit of rage, Isaac yells through the closed door,
"I can work my way to Boston, and I shall do so. And when I come back, I will be able to purchase your farm, if not all the farms in Sandwich."
So Isaac scrimps and saves. He skips meals in order to pool enough money to get himself to Boston. Isaac arrives in Boston knowing no one and nearly penniless, but he quickly finds work with a machinist. After 2 years, he finds himself working for a machine shop that services most of the printing presses in the city. While fixing up the printing presses, Isaac can't help but see flaws in their design. His brain is working overtime, dreaming up ways that these machines could be better, faster, and more efficient.
Isaac designs and develops a steam-powered press that revolutionizes the industry. It speeds up production significantly, and faster production means lower cost of books, making the printed word that he loves so much available to more people. By 1828, the 26-year-old Isaac Adams is on his way to fortune.
In the coming decades, hundreds of print shops around the world acquire an Adams steam press, and Isaac Adams is growing very wealthy. Isaac buys real estate in Boston, but he never stops thinking about the small town of Sandwich, New Hampshire.
In fact, Isaac sends his son, Isaac Jr., to boarding school at the Sandwich Academy. We know from a letter to his son that Isaac is kind of a hard ass who has no problem pressuring his children. This is what Isaac wrote to his son.
If you read the Bible, you will find a law by which stubborn children were to be stoned to death. This law is supposed by many to have been decreed by God himself. I could say a deal more on this subject, but I think you will perceive from the above that all wise and good people always have deemed it absolutely necessary to prosperity that children should love and obey their parents.
While his son trembles in fear at school, Adams is growing richer and more powerful. He'll go on to serve on the Massachusetts Senate and even tries to run for mayor of Boston. He has ambitions, but seems to lack the temperament needed to navigate politics.
Well, judging by his letter, I can see why. It's 1859 when Isaac Adams sells his steam press patent for $100,000 and turns his manufacturing company over to his youngest son. Isaac is determined to keep his word about buying up the farms back in Sandwich, where he plans to retire.
And boy, does he keep his word. Isaac, his wife Anna, and their 3 youngest children move back to Sandwich. First, he buys the old Clough House on the Sandwich Academy land. In the coming years, he'll expand the house, plus build other buildings on the property.
He's also buying land, lots of it. Soon, he'll buy up 2,600 acres in Sandwich and the neighboring town of Moultonborough. Adams sees himself as a bit of a land baron now, lord of his castle. He hires groundkeepers and pays top dollar to have statues and landscaping placed around his vast property.
Having acquired several statues in Europe, Adams wants some of these works proudly displayed. And that's when he comes up with an idea for a wall. A great wall that will encompass his entire property and feature these statues on top of the wall for all to see. Pretty soon, 100 men and 50 yoke of oxen are hard at work bringing in the stones and constructing the wall.
Meanwhile, Isaac is getting involved in local politics. He's stubborn and vengeful. He's carried that grudge since he first left Sandwich. He wants to run this town. He's elected selectman, representative to the general court, moderator of the town meeting, and treasurer of the school fund note, which oversees funds for the poor. He's ambitious, and he doesn't take kindly to criticism.
Back home, though, Isaac has his own troubles. He and his wife are known to have some epic quarrels. Anna has been seen more than once chasing her husband out of the house, waving her broom at him.
Isaac wants things his way, no matter what logic or anything else may dictate. He even looks into building a canal to connect Little Pond on his property to Lake Winnipesaukee. His idea was to make Little Pond a saltwater pond so he could raise lobsters and other saltwater fish. No matter how many people told him this will never work, the stubborn Isaac never stopped thinking about his own supply of fresh lobsters. And though he didn't get his saltwater pond, he did get his Great Wall. And that brings us back to today. Though the town's memory of Isaac Adams faded over time, his wall remained. This big, audacious wall. There were even rumors that the wall is so wide so he could ride his horse and carriage on it to show off to the world.
That's funny, but it doesn't make much sense.
Sure.
First, how would you get a horse and carriage up there? And second, there are so many segment breaks in the wall, you couldn't ride on it very far.
No, that's totally true. Now, though the other statues are all gone now, Niobe remains. But But even this statue feels a bit like a middle finger to the people of Sandwich.
How so?
According to Greek mythology, Niobe was punished by Apollo because she had excessive pride in her children.
Well, we all know someone like that.
So the interpretation is that maybe Isaac Adams saw himself as Apollo, and the people of Sandwich are his children. So Niobe is here to look down on them from her high pedestal. Well, that is until 1941.
Ooh, what happened in 1941?
Back in 1941, a hurricane reached this part of New Hampshire and toppled the statue, breaking it into hundreds of pieces. Those pieces, though, were saved in a nearby barn and sat there for 70 years until they were sort of rediscovered and reassembled so she could be placed again on the pedestal on the Great Wall of Sandwich.
There's something so permanent about stonework. Building something big out of stone, in a way, makes you immortal. It stands long after you're gone as a testament to your greatness. It forces people to look at what you made and ask the question, who built this and why?
And who can blame us if we not only wonder about the backstory behind these large projects, but maybe over-speculate?
Roadside oddities have a way of doing that. They stand out, which is part of the point.
Speaking of standing out, our super secret Facebook group has almost 7,000 members now.
Wow.
It's a great group of people sharing weird stories, pictures from their own legend trips, and all kinds of other content you may enjoy. And it's free to join us there. And you should also download our free smartphone app so you don't miss a thing we have going on.
We'd like to thank Tim Weisberg from Spooky South Coast Radio for lending his voice acting talents this week. And our theme music is by John Judd.
Right on. So, are you ready for a little post-legend riff?
Let's riff. Let's do it.
I love roadside oddity stories.
Sure.
You know,
I love roadside oddities.
We drive down the road, and you know it's generally probably boring, right? You're going somewhere, and then something sticks out.
Yeah.
You see this thing, and you go, "Ooh, what's that?" I mean,
or a sign, perhaps.
A sign,
Yeah.
something like the TP on Route 2 in Massachusetts.
Oh,
I can
yeah,
think
yeah.
of, and it sometimes it even forces you to stop.
Driving cross country, I saw a lot of signs, if not the actual roadside oddities. Like, you know, the Cadillacs that are sticking out of the ground?
Yeah,
We
yeah.
drove right by it. We stayed across the street. Come morning, I look outside and, oh my God, those are in books. I've seen those
Right.
before. So we had to stop.
You were
Or-
with your son traveling across
yeah.
country. Yeah.
Or we'd see a sign and get off the map for an hour or so just to go see something crazy.
Right, yeah.
But that's what you do when you're driving around. We take road trips, you know?
I'm a Weird Al Yankovic fan, as people who know me know. We've both have photos taken with Weird Al. We were trying to flex on each other. I was like, "Oh yeah, look at this! I got a photo with Weird Al." And you text me one back in 2 minutes. You're like, "So do I." Okay, never mind.
And the same day, I snapped a photo of me and O.J. Simpson.
Wow.
So does that top the whole story?
Yeah.
Okay.
We should just end here now, I guess. So Weird Al Yankovic, of course, wrote a song called "The Biggest Ball of Twine in Minnesota."
Oh, that's right.
Which is a real thing. There's
Yeah.
really, and I mean, think about it. That's a roadside oddity that just commanded your attention. But this Great Wall in Sandwich, New Hampshire, you know, when we were first talking about stone wall stories, you're like, dude, they're everywhere. Like
Right.
you can.
We're
you
famous
can't-
for it. That and covered bridges.
Yeah, you can't turn your head without finding a colonial stone wall. There's literally one in my backyard.
Yeah.
Right, and it's just you see all these rocks, and boy, my back hurts looking at them because they were all on the land, right?
Yeah.
And someone had to roll them into one big pile, and it must have been awful. So we've got walls aplenty everywhere. But this one is different, right? This one's square. It's huge. It's significant, and it sort of makes you ask, like, well, why is it here? And then the statue of Niobe on top. I love the fact that I think in Sandwich, the memory of Isaac, you know, has really faded. It's people don't really talk about him,
Right.
But they see the wall, and they figure like, oh, like who lived here, right? But it makes you ask the questions. And stone, there's something so immortal about it.
Yeah.
The pyramids, the Great Pyramids
Right.
of Giza, right? Like they've been there for thousands of years. That's incredible.
Yeah.
You know
That's
what I
something
mean?
that sticks around. Stone and,
Right.
you know, while other things kind of die off, stones don't.
And so if you were, and I play this game a lot, where if we were to transport ourselves 1,000 years in the future and we're archaeologists combing through the ruins of New England, right, we would find stone walls everywhere.
Yeah.
But this one would be different than those other stone
And
walls.
why? That's the question you ask. Why is this one so different?
Why is this one so different? And
What's the story behind this? This is a story behind every oddity.
yeah, that's right. And I love the fact that sometimes people look at the road around them or their land and they say, well, what can I do to stick out?
Yeah.
You know, Massachusetts, of course, gave us the pink lawn flamingo. Speaking of sticking out.
That is true. And
Yeah,
I just
Leominster.
recently learned that years ago.
Just recently learned that years
Well,
ago.
I mean, like within the last few
Yeah.
years.
I had the chance to interview Don Featherstone when I was working on my book.
Featherstone.
Yeah, that's his
Feather.
name. Stone.
And we were talking about stones today.
This is the synchronicities are just everywhere. So Don Featherstone lived in Leominster with his wife. He's passed on since. He designed the first plastic pink lawn flamingo for Union Products, and it went. Everyone in the world knew about them. And so. But what a guy, right? And to quote Don Featherstone, by the way, I said, what do you think? Some people have set up charities where they'll flamingo your lawn.
Sure. We have that in town in Milford here. Yeah.
And you pay to get it removed, right? Or you buy flamingo insurance and we won't flamingo your lawn.
Yeah.
And he said, I love it. I love it, all of that. And he said, with the plastic pink lawn flamingo, I feel like I was able to bring poor taste to poor people everywhere. And,
it is a joke. You put one of those on your front lawn and you've told everybody what class of citizen you are.
You're like, this is what's going on. This is what's up. And so like that's the everyman's Great Wall, right? Like you and I can afford plastic pink lawn flamingos, but they'll be gone, in a matter of years as they just melt in the sun or get brittle after New England winters. But that wall still stands.
I was just thinking off topic that flamingo must have been replicated. He must have been ripped off time after time after time.
But the real ones have his autograph on the butt.
Oh.
In
but if you're going
to
buy flamingos, would you look for the autograph?
I would now.
Well, now you would, yeah.
Yeah.
But back then you wouldn't think of that.
No.
So he must have had a patent on it as well.
Sure.
I'm sorry, there's so many questions.
I know. Well, it's the things that stick out, the things that we see,
and that's a local roadside oddity.
Which
kind of seeing those flamingos. Think about it. You're driving around. Wouldn't you point that out to your family? Look, pink flamingos.
They come from Leominster. Leominster is Plastic City, right?
Yeah.
You know what else comes from Leominster?
What?
Tupperware.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That was that's where Tupperware was invented, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
We have granite here in Milford, pink granite.
Yes.
They have plastic in Leominster.
Right.
Who wins?
I don't know. There's a lot more Tupperware out there than pink granite.
You see that statue right out front?
I do.
That statue was made by a gentleman who had a lot to do. Well, actually, was it the Lincoln Monument? I think he designed the Lincoln Monument.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you've got one here
That's
in
General Draper. Yeah.
General Draper.
I know, and there's some pink granite in Washington D.C. as well.
Ooh.
That came from
Milford,
yeah.
Massachusetts. Yeah. That's. How do we get there?
I don't know.
We get the flamingo, then the granite. Yeah, and here we are. And we were talking about a Great Wall and sandwich.
It's so lost. And it's my fault.
No, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Okay.
What's another roadside oddity? There's
Ball of twine is the original, I think. When you make fun of roadside oddities, I think people immediately go to largest ball of twine
in Minnesota. But I'll tell you though, we were road tripping through Maine, myself and Frank Grace, who's the photographer, and Tony Dunn, who I do the New England Legends television series with. And we saw this huge crank phone, like maybe it was like 15 feet tall, like big on the side of the road. And we stopped and took a picture of it because it was easy to just pull over and do it. Didn't even know the story. That town, and forgive me, I forget the name of the town at this point, was the last town to have the crank phones.
Oh, no kidding.
And I believe it was into the 1980s.
Oh, my God.
Right? So, when we all had touch tones by then and they were still using like the crank, hey, Maud, connect me to, Double Five, whoever.
That town probably has no name. It's so small.
Right, yeah. These little small town things. But every town's known for something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We've got a few in Massachusetts. You probably wouldn't even realize are roadside oddities, just large statues.
Yeah.
There's a big ice cream cone in Douglas on Route 16.
Right.
And I think it's just that. It's just a ice cream cone outside of a
Sure.
ice cream stand. But it's an oddity for us locals. It's like, the big, and it's a landmark.
Yeah, take a right at the ice cream cone.
Yeah.
What ice cream cone? You'll see it. Don't worry.
There's a large chair, too. Who's the chair city? In
Gardner.
Gardner,
Mass.
that's it. The furniture, right?
The world's
furniture?
largest chair. Yeah.
I think they make furniture in Gardner.
They do, yeah. Gardner, Massachusetts, and there's the world's largest chair is on display there. But then there was another town that built a bigger one, and then Gardner built an even bigger one. There was like a chair war that went back and forth.
Oh, really?
And so, hey, why not, right? Like, you've got an idea for a thing.
Why not?
In I think it's in Westport, Massachusetts, there's a fork in the road.
An actual fork.
An actual fork. And I got to talk to the artist at one point. He said, it's such a distinct fork. And when you're giving directions to friends, this was before the days of GPS where you just did whatever Waze told you to do.
Yeah.
He would say, well, when you get to the fork, bear to the right. then I'm up on whatever. And so he's like, he built a fork that's something like 15 feet tall. He got permission, put it on a pedestal on the land that's right in the middle of the triangle there.
Yeah.
And so now when you pull up, like, well, the fork in the road is like not only a landmark, but an artistic expression.
Sure.
And it's literal and it's funny. And like, it's one of those jokes that probably you still laugh at even after you've driven by it like 200 times. You're like, the fork in the road.
Every time I watch Muppet movie, I laugh at that. Make a left at the fork in the road. There's a fork in the road.
A fork in the road, yeah.
It says bear right, frog left.
Right.
All those things.
I know. The joke, it's great. And so I do love when we cover some of these stories because they do sort of feel immortal. Feels like it connects us back to another time, and it forces you to ask those questions: who did it and why?
Yep.
And there's always some sort of story there, whether it's some eccentric that was just expressing him or herself, or whether it was just made sense at the time, or a flexing of money. I think in this case, Isaac Adams was just like, "Hey, I told you I'd come back. Now I'm filthy rich, and I'm going to build this castle." Right?
Yeah, I'm looking for some attention.
Yeah, and these statues that are just, I'm flexing. All the wealth I have, the art, and the Great Wall.
Almost the same reason why I put pink flamingos on my lawn.
Right. Look what I got.
But
look what I got.
Look at all I can afford.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, until next time, remember.
The bazaar is closer than you think.